Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to My World of Stocks and welcome back to our budget community portfolio series for the month of July 2025. And we've got a special episode for you today because we actually added two brand new stocks to the portfolio, which I can't wait to share with you. Now, chapters are down below in case you need to skip past this intro. But for anyone that is new here, just know that this is not my larger private portfolio. This is the smaller on a budget public one where I only deposit $100 each month into this new account. And then I use that money to invest in stocks, some of which is also influenced by you guys through various polls, comments, and messages that you send me, especially on Discord. And then I do an update video once a month for it here on YouTube, separated into two parts. First, we cover how the portfolio is performing so far with all the trades that we made last month in June, followed immediately by part two, where I then cover how each individual stock is performing in the portfolio, either up or down, and what I plan to buy in this month here in July. Before we start, though, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you'd like to get full access to this portfolio, as well as our private community Discord, where you can reach me, hang out with other members, and even get access to my daily stock trade, where I post a new stock purchase every single day, then you can get access to all of that and more by supporting me on Patreon. Link is in the description. And thank you to everyone that does support the channel this way, because I couldn't do this without you. So thank you very much for that support, my friends. And lastly, we do use SoFi for this account, which I'm a big fan of. It's completely free. It has fractional shares, no fees, no commissions, and it can even do a ton more than just that, like setting up a Roth IRA, for example, completely free. Plus, if you use my referral link down in the description, you will even get a bonus $25 worth of stocks just for trying it out. So I highly recommend it. But with all of that said, let's go ahead and jump into part one now and take a look at how the portfolio is holding up so far and all the moves we made last month in June. Well, in all, it was actually a very good month for us, with the portfolio climbing around 3% during that time, which you've probably been seeing in your own portfolios too, really coming off the tariffs crash or big market drop that we had in April. I'd say most stocks have really been seeing strong rebounds coming off of that, with the market itself already breaking new record highs again, like in the S&P 500 and the tech-heavy NASDAQ. Since our portfolio's inception, though, in a little over a year and a half, we are now up over 27% at around $2,670. However, we do have $281 just sitting in cash. So when we exclude that, it's actually up even more at 31% gains, which is very strong performance. And we're definitely heading in the right direction with this portfolio. So I'm very happy to see that. Now, in terms of spending, we did go just a little over budget in June, investing $105 into stocks. However, you can see that this was really caused by that tariff crash that we had in April, where we spent a record $140, and we're now kind of slowly spending less and less as we come off of those, lows that we saw in stocks, and they start getting a little more expensive. But don't let that fool you into thinking that there's no great deals out there for stocks. Like I said, we still went over budget this last month, and that's because many stocks haven't actually really recovered as much as you might think that they have from those tariff drops that we had in the market. And so I've still been very active in the market, buying up all the great deals that I come across, which we'll talk a little bit more about in part two. But just to finish up here with all the June buys, I did run a few polls to see which stocks you guys wanted me to buy, including this one on Discord, asking which brand new stock should we add to the portfolio, where 16% of the votes went to Adobe, just ahead of Stanley Black & Decker, Federal Realty, and Broadcom, who all had 13% each. So we picked up Adobe. I do like those other stocks a lot too, though, so hopefully we can include them in a future poll and maybe they'll win, especially Stanley Black & Decker. I like their dividend a lot. But Adobe, I think, is also a very solid choice here as a leader in creative software. I use a ton of Adobe apps myself as a YouTuber here. And I think that they're only going to experience even more of a boost in their platforms and in how sticky their platforms are long term because of their integration of artificial intelligence into all their services, all their apps. And I think that's just going to really drive demand for them longer term too. And currently, the stock is actually down close to half its entire value. So I do think that it's a great time to be picking up Adobe right now. And I'm excited to see what we can do with it here in the portfolio. Up next, though, also on Discord, I asked which of our 10 worst performing positions should I buy more of? To which, once again, 19% of the votes went to Adobe for the win, who was currently down 5% at that time after picking it up. So I actually added even more of Adobe stock. Then over on Patreon, I asked which of these 7 dividend paying stocks should we add more of? But I actually included Duke Energy as an option for a brand new pickup since we don't already hold it. And a whopping 47% of the votes went straight to that. And that's probably because you guys always like to see a new stock added to the portfolio. It's kind of exciting. It's a fun thing to do. So that's probably why I got so many more votes over all the other stocks that we already had exposure to, right? So this was a way of, just getting exposure to something new that we didn't already have. But hey, I am certainly not complaining about this outcome because I actually love Duke Energy stock right now. I think it's arguably one of the most attractive stocks in the entire market, especially in the energy sector. Even despite a recent run up on all the nuclear energy hype, it's actually still, in my opinion, been a bit suppressed and undervalued. It's only up around 50% in the past decade, which is not very high performance at all. And the valuation is about the same as the sector, despite this being a very strong and dominant leader in energy. And it's also one that pays a very attractive dividend of more than 3.5% on 2 decades of consecutive growth. So I'm more than happy to be adding it to our portfolio. And I've even added it to my personal private portfolio recently too. After that though, over on YouTube, I asked, which of our 4 best performing stocks should I buy more of? To which almost half of all the votes went to SoFi, and that was ahead of Palantir. Palantir, of course, is a fan favorite out there, but it is up by a lot, so I think that's why maybe you guys didn't vote for that. And it was also ahead of Tesla and VeriSign. Tesla, of course, has had a lot of controversies lately, and VeriSign is just not a very well-known stock, I feel, out there. I've certainly talked about it to you guys, but I don't think a lot of other YouTubers have probably been talking about it to you. So anyway, you guys voted for SoFi, so I added more of SoFi stock. And then finally, back over on Discord, I asked which of our 10 smallest positions should I buy more of, to which we actually had a tie, and it was once again including Adobe. I'm honestly surprised at how many people have been voting for Adobe. I didn't know it was that popular of a stock, but this time it was also including Bristol Myers, who they tied with. Each of them took 17% of the votes, so I purchased more of both of those stocks. In total, though, I spent by far the most money on Adobe stock, as you would expect because of all the polls. That was at $35 during the month. And then another $10 went to each of Bristol Myers, who, by the way, pays a fantastic dividend. Love that stock. We'll talk a little bit more about them in a second. But also Duke Energy, PepsiCo, and Pfizer, and all 3 of those also pay some of my favorite dividends in the market. And then I spent $5 each on Amazon, one of my favorite core stocks of the past decade. EXR, probably my favorite overall dividend REIT in the market. Google, probably my overall favorite stock in the entire market just as a whole. Realty Income, another favorite dividend REIT of mine. SoFi, one of my favorite fintechs, and Tyson Foods, one of my favorite dividend stocks within meat and poultry. Okay, so here is where things get a little more exciting though, because we're moving on to part 2, and we're going to take a look at how each individual stock is performing and which ones I'll be looking to buy more of in this month here in July. So here's all the holdings on SoFi. I break it down into custom charts so that's easier to see, and I also post everything on Discord if you do want to take a closer look later at that. But currently, around half of our portfolio resides in just these 7 stocks alone. That being Google, the largest, followed by Palantir, who only really made it to number 2 because of just how much the stock has skyrocketed this past year. But then we also have Amazon, number 3, followed by Microsoft, number 4, SoFi at number 5, who also really climbed the ranks because of just how much the stock has soared. And then we also have Extra Space Storage and Vici Properties rounding it off there as really 2 of my absolute favorite REITs in the market. I'd say those are my 2 favorite. If you told me what are 2 dividend REITs that you can buy in the market, EXR and Vici, probably my two favorite if I had to choose. Overall, though, I am very happy with the structure that we have really built up here so far in the portfolio. But I will just tell you right now that some of these smaller positions, especially the newer additions of Adobe, Realty Income, and Duke Energy, I will 100% be choosing those as like clear targets for the month of July here to be buying more of. Definitely want more of those. And all three of those, especially, I want to build up into, I would say, like I want to move them into like the middle core portion of my portfolio. In other words, I want to buy more of them so that they have more influence, more weight in my portfolio. I want them to be around the middle of the pack, not at the bottom, right? Right now they're at the bottom, they're smaller positions. I want to build them up larger, let them have more influence over my portfolio because I really like them. I think they have big, future potential, turnaround potential, dividends. I mean, value, growth. They have a lot of things, depending on which exactly one you're looking at. But all three of those I really like a lot. So definitely clear targets there in, again, Adobe, Realty Income, and Duke Energy especially. Having said that, though, most of our holdings are very deep into the green, which I'll zoom in here because it's going to be otherwise too hard to see. But starting with the double-digit gainers first, Palantir is obviously our best performer at over 400% gains at this point. I don't plan on buying more at this time since it is already our second largest position and we are up by so much on it. But I also don't really plan on selling either because they just have so much potential with AI. I think they have a bright future. Even, look, I'm sure it's going to go through dips. I'm sure it's going to have volatility all along the way. But it's a stock that I sleep easy just knowing that I really want to think, where's this company going to be 10 years, 15 years, even 20 years into the future? I really think it's going to be much bigger. And obviously, the further out you go into the future, it's going to be harder to predict. But, at least like the next 5 to 10 years, I think Palantir has a lot of things going for them. They should have strong momentum. I think the company will be bigger. That's just my opinion. But then also we have SoFi. That's our clear number 2 best performer at triple digit gains, followed by Tesla, Verisign, Nvidia, JPM, Cisco, and Meta, all up around 50% or more. Very strong performers. And then still many other stocks up double digits too, including even, by the way, some surprising breakouts in like Supermicro, Disney, Alibaba, Scotts Miracle-Gro, and PayPal. It wasn't too long ago that we were actually negative on those positions. So it's a little surprising they're performing very well more lately here. Well, things get even more interesting though when we jump into the single digit gainers, because I strongly feel that some of these are deeply undervalued. Like, for example, Extra Space Storage, who we're only up around 3% on, despite storage REITs historically being one of the absolute best areas of real estate to be investing in. There's also PepsiCo, a dominant world leader and even a dividend king that has really been beaten down a lot lately. And I can't believe how low it is. I can't believe how much the dividend has risen. I'm going to be aggressively buying it here in July too, as well as Realty Income, another big dividend paying REIT. And I would also say even Bristol Myers, who I'm actually planning to do an update video on, because this might be, I would say, one of the most attractive dividend biotechs in the entire market right now in terms of valuation, how much has been beaten down, the turnaround potential I think they have, and the dividend yield. We got to talk more about it. So be on the lookout for me to discuss them here soon. And then finally, what gets the most interesting probably is the negative performers. These are stocks that I'm actually down on right now in the community portfolio. And I'm going to be especially looking to buy heavy into some of these like Tyson Foods, Duke Energy, and Adobe. That's not to say that Pfizer and Baidu aren't attractive here either too, but Pfizer, we've already established a large position on, and Baidu is a bit riskier than most because it is a Chinese stock. So I think I'd rather put more money into these other three instead, especially though I would say Duke Energy, since that's not only a negative position of ours, but it's also our smallest holding. So, you give me a stock here that I love, with one of the strongest businesses in energy, with future potential in nuclear, with a very attractive dividend, with an attractive valuation, and it's our smallest holding, and we're actually negative on it. I mean, you can be sure that I'm going to be buying that one. If I had to say, if I had to guess which stock am I going to be buying the most during July, I would bet it's Duke Energy. I mean, that's like, it's so obvious to me that I need to buy more of that one. So I'll be going pretty heavy into it. But anyway, those are my thoughts for this current month here. Now, I did add another fresh $100 for the new month's budget, and that brought our account up to nearly like $2,800. It fluctuates a little because the market was open while I was taking these screenshots, but that does leave us now with a cash ratio of just around 14%, which is pretty low, by the way. It's getting a little low. Usually we have a bit more cash than that, but again, it's because of the tariffs crash that we saw in the market where I went out and I spent more heavily. I had to actually tap into some of our cash reserves because I went over budget for a few months there. So we'll see. We'll just kind of have to monitor the cash portion in our portfolio for now. I do like to have a little more cash just in case the market does drop heavy. Then I can tap into it, buy more aggressively. So if it's needed, I'm more than willing to add an extra $100, in an upcoming month, just add a bonus $100 just to boost up the cash portion a little bit, just because we did use some of it. And that's one of the nice things about having a budget portfolio like this is that, we're not really spending very much money on this at all, to the point where if we ever need to, infuse a little extra cash, it's totally feasible because, again, we're not spending very much cash to begin with. So it's a pretty easy portfolio to manage is what I'm trying to say. By the way, some people have been asking me like, why do I even do this like series? It's not because I like to be on a restricted budget like this. I would never want to be on I like to spend I like to spend a lot of whatever disposable cash I have. I like to pour that into the stock market. But the reason I do this series is because I've had lots of people, even viewers, people in comments, even people outside of YouTube have told me that it's too hard to invest in stocks. It costs too much money. Like they don't ever get around to it. It's too difficult. So this whole series is meant, I would say, more so for beginners who maybe are on a tight budget. And it's to just illustrate the power of just investing. Like just to stop thinking about it and just do it. This portfolio itself only costs $100 a month. That's all I'm putting into this, $100 a month. And look at what we've accomplished. Look at how much we're up. Look at the gains that we're seeing, over 30% gains. And the portfolio is already getting big. It's already getting to like almost $3,000. We're only putting in, $100 a month. So yeah, my point is to just kind of illustrate. Imagine if we were actually putting way more than $100, which I do with my private portfolio. I'm sure many of you do with your own portfolios. But it's also a way, I just wanted to show you guys how to like start a portfolio from scratch. But, how am I going to do that when I already have my private portfolio that's already built up? So this was another easy way of just kind of building something from scratch, and it's on a budget. And also with my private portfolio, there is some privacy there. I have a lot of friends and family that watch my videos. I do update videos on my private portfolio once in a while, and that is something that I got to do for you guys here soon. We'll be doing that soon, talking about my private portfolio. But there are some privacy concerns that I don't necessarily want to be showing that all the time, showing all the dollar amounts and having all my friends and family know how much money I have in all those stocks. Whereas with, the smaller community budget one, it's not like a very big portfolio, so I'm not as stressed out about sharing everything with it. I'm like very transparent with it. And even on our Discord, I show all the screenshots, everything. On here, I show you all the screenshots. So I'm a lot more transparent with this one, so it's a lot easier. So there's many reasons why I do this series. And by the way, I get tons of very positive feedback from you guys that you guys love this series, and I love doing this series. It's one of my favorite things that I've added to the channel. So anyway, I'm rambling a little bit, I know, but I like to sometimes share with you some personal insight on things that are going on with me, with the channel, with my life, and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, hey, I hope that you guys enjoyed this month's update. Let me know if you have any questions down below, especially over on Discord. If you are a member, feel free to chat with me anytime. But thanks again for all of your support, my friends. I hope you're all doing well, and I will catch you in the next video. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.